Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everybody will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome to our November action meeting. Would you take roll, please?
Mr. Goodwin?
Here.
Mrs. Judge?
Here.
Mrs. Matlack?
Here.
Mrs. Seidel?
Here.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Here.
Mrs. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Here.
Dr. Wong?
Here.
Dr. Dickinson?
Here. Okay, we have minutes to approve today. For this evening, we're reviewing the regular action meeting dated October 16th, the special meeting dated October 2nd, the executive sessions dated October 2nd and October 16th. Are there any errors, omissions, or additions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve? Mrs. Matlack and Mrs. Scarpolino. Mrs. Sugars.
Goodwin?
Abstaining
Mrs.
from
Judge?
all meetings.
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes to all.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes, to all. All right, I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Malash for a presentation this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. I'm very excited to welcome some of our students and family members here as we honor some of our students for recognition, national merit, semifinalist, and commended students. We'll actually do a second piece at the December meeting. We found out today that there was a list that we had missed. When the stuff was collected. So there will be a second group of students that we will recognize at the December 18th meeting as well. I'm going to ask Mrs. Wilson to join me at the podium, and I believe Ms. Metzger is here from High School East. Ms. Metzger, if you would join us at the podium as well.
All right, good evening. We're going to start this evening with our National Merit semifinalist students. First, we have Ilana Araghetti. Vivian Din. Catherine Hugh. Si Jiang. Jacob Manders. Ellis Schwartz. Sarab Shah. Marina Shi. Vidya Shunmugasundaram. Cherise Zhu. Michael Geisinger. Sonia M. Kengaju. Julia Langmuir. Catherine Workmeister. And Robert Young. And then if you'll all join me with your certificates out in the hallway, we'll get a couple of pictures. Parents can take pictures as well. You're then free to go unless you want to come back and attend the meeting. You're welcome to do that as well. So that'll do it. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move into our correspondence. I believe that Mrs. Judge has a few items for us.
First, I had to find it. So, I just have a few things to report on tonight. I did want to report that at the New Jersey School Boards Conference in Atlantic City back in October, which seems like it was years ago, I was able to say thank you to Dr. Ropalet, who's the Commissioner of the Department of Education for the state of New Jersey. That was Tuesday, October 23rd at the New Jersey ASA and Garden State Coalition of Schools meeting with the Department of Education. And then on Wednesday, the 24th, I was also able to say thank you on behalf of Cherry Hill to Senate President Steve Sweeney at the School Board Association Joint School Boards Garden State Joint Legislative Update meeting. An interesting comment he had when I said thank you on behalf of Cherry Hill for our additional funding that we received. He said that it was because of all of us who testified and that made a big difference. And during the week, I ran into both Amy Jablonski from Chesterfield and Dr. Lavender from Kingsway and said pretty much the same thing to them, that I think that we benefited from their passionate pleas throughout the spring last year with their lack of funding, and they both received additional funding also. Other things to report on is I attended the special SEPTA meeting with the SEPTA Executive Board on Monday, October 29th. As a board member, I sat with administration and the SEPTA Executive Board to listen to their concerns and heard answers from administration, and I am very hopeful that both SEPTA and the district can move forward and work together. Garden State news is I've been actually asked to stay on the executive board of Garden State and remain a vice president until the May annual meeting. They looked at their bylaws and this is allowed. So we don't have a real plan here, but I suspect I will send a brief written report every month to Cherry Hill board leadership and Dr. Malash monthly. But I am not going tomorrow evening because tomorrow night's Garden State meeting is up in Ridgewood. It's just too far away. I'd have to leave like 3:30, and I probably wouldn't get back until after 11 tomorrow night. So they know I won't be there. But starting in December, I will be attending the Garden State meetings on behalf of Cherry Hill until May. In December's meeting, Senate President Steve Sweeney is going to be there. They actually confirmed that today. So I will talk to him again. And the last thing I have to report is this coming Thursday, I'll be attending my last school board's joint Camden-Gloucester County dinner with Mrs. Matlack. You're still able to go?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, I'm
good.
still going, and
Okay.
as vice president of Camden
Oh
County,
yeah, that's
I
right.
should be there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we one of us will report on that in December. So that is my report. Any questions? Seeing none, back to you, Dr. Dickinson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Judge. And I believe Mrs. Scarpolino has something to share.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dickinson. On November 5th, I attended the district's mental health task force meeting. We meet a couple of times during the year, and it's made up of district employees, SAC employees, but also people from the community, pediatricians, mental health providers, some social workers, so really a good mix of professionals and community members who all are very focused on and deal with this issue of mental health. We initially talked about the mental health screening tool, which is the Behavioral Health Works. That'll be coming again in the winter of 2019. We talked about the fact that participation is rather low in our district. Only about 10% of the students participate. It does go out, information on it does go out to every parent. They get a letter, but there's clearly barriers to student participation in that we are a consent state, and so we can't require students to do it. We can't say you have to opt out, you have to opt in. And so the parent and guardian has to opt the students in. So we try to brainstorm a little bit on ways to get greater participation, maybe giving additional information to students because they themselves might feel they'd benefit from this and they would talk with their parents about it. Pushing information out there through the social media, other marketing tools, maybe some community groups that might be helpful, particularly if there might be some cultural or religious barriers that are people might have towards mental health screenings or something like that. There might be groups in the community that can help us explain what this is and get the participation up. There is legislation that I believe Assemblywoman Lampett is sponsoring to have mental health screening done at the well visit at the pediatrician's office, because as it stands now, you have to come back for a second visit. It can't be done part of the well visit. I believe that's looking for for kids ages 13 and up, and the pediatricians that were part of our group are saying we'd like to see it pushed down to even younger ages, because believe it or not, there are concerns with even younger children about maybe suicide ideation, or depression and things like that. We then moved on to talking about the new HIB legislation, which allows the principals to make sort of an initial assessment of whether or not it even meets the threshold of what would be HIB versus just conflict. And so hopefully that will keep a lot of investigations from happening that aren't necessarily needed to be. Before, if somebody said the word bully, it just triggered an investigation, even though it was pretty clear from the circumstances that this was a conflict and would be handled under the Code of Conduct as conflict. So now there is some flexibility in the buildings, at the building level, to make that initial determination, which I think is going to be better for everyone involved, the students in particular. Also, there was a report on the new Hipster program, that it was a little difficult initially, but people are getting the hang of it and think, that it's going to be more user-friendly and clearer in the end, but we are working on a few kinks on that. Also, that the Zone PTA had held a parent night education about the law and its impact on the community, because again, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding within the community as to what HIB is and then what our obligations are under the law. And most people think of bullying in the old-fashioned terms of push somebody down in the puddle kind of thing, and that's not bullying, that's conflict. So they said they had a pretty good turnout for that. Then the Alliance sponsored the Addiction to Social Media and Texting and Technology presentation, and that was held at Carusi. I don't have the date, I forgot the date, but the attendance was great. They said at least 100 people attended. Oh, you were there? Okay, yeah. So that's a great turnout, 100 people attending. And some of these, there is clearly a recognition now, and from what I understand, I forget what they call that, that book of diagnoses, but there's going to be the DSM. Thank you. There's going to be an addition to the DSM, the latest DSM, about the social media or technology addiction. Believe it or not. And Zone PTA is looking for upcoming parent nights to bring up this topic of mental health and spread the word a little bit more, and about addiction for technology, gaming, and that kind of thing. Somebody had suggested maybe we can even incorporate that into the curriculum for the health classes. Maybe work in, since we talk about drug addiction and things like that, maybe there would be a point where we could incorporate even some information on technology addiction. Let's see. Then we're talking about some new social emotional curriculum at the elementary level, which is the Lions Quest. Or actually, that's I think what we use now, but a new program was going to be a step-up progress called Second Step, which is actually what is recommended, I think, for kindergarten curriculum already. But that's a new social emotional curriculum that's going to be piloted in each school in the elementary level before they purchase the curriculum. They want to make sure it's what they're looking for. They've been given, I guess, apparently there's been some updated materials from the old curriculum, which is better. However, they're looking for the manufacturer, and the manufacturer has agreed to update the videos, apparently, that they show the students, because they were done in the 90s, and the weird hair and the weird phones and all that kind of stuff is really distracting to the kids, and they don't get the message, what the videos are really supposed to be talking about. So that supposedly is coming. Yeah, I know. The QPR recertification update, there were 4 more SACs who were recertified on that, and that's the suicide prevention gatekeeper training. So that's progressing along. There was a discussion about having a resource fair, sort of at Malberg, and actually we just got the date recently. It's going to be on April 15th, and what that's going to be is sort of like a parent university type of thing, where there would be workshops, and they would hold 3 sessions on various topics, but they would be held 3 different times, identical sessions, so that you could go to a session on mental health at one point, and then the next 20-minute session you would go maybe something on Naviance, but the person who was in Naviance could now go to mental health. Hopefully I'm explaining that well. I don't know if I am. But it's so you can go to all 3 sessions, that they'll keep repeating them over again. And then when they were also talking about possibly working with Zone PTA to bring in speakers, have tables where there could be information from Zone PTA, from the CHSEPTA, about Naviance or mental health, all those different things. Maybe something about technology addiction. So that looked like something that could be useful for the community. And then we just had some questions and concerns. Somebody suggested that the high school groups maybe should be looking at, or the high school administration, about having some kind of proactive planning for the anniversary of Parkland, because that could cause a lot of anxiety and distress for students. And so we might want to think about having some programming in place, maybe an acknowledgement of on that day, which I thought made sense. So, and our next meeting will be in the spring. I'm not sure of the date. Then I had another meeting I went to on Saturday, November 17th. I went to the New Jersey School Board's Delegate Assembly meeting. That's the first time I've been to one. So I found it fascinating. I've got a lot of notes here, but I'm going to try and pare it down because I just thought it was really interesting. We weren't voting on anything at that meeting, so unfortunately I didn't get to use my little voting buzzer, but yeah, I know. I was all excited. They gave it to us, and then we didn't vote on anything. They just basically did approval of the minutes from the May meeting, which Mrs. Judd kindly attended for me. Speakers included the New Jersey School Board Association's President Daniel Sinclair, the Executive Director Lawrence Feinsod, Brandon Pugh, who is the VP for Legislation Resources, former New Jersey Department of Education Commissioner Lucille Davey, and Mark Magyar, who is the Associate Executive Director for Policy Development in the Senate Majority Office. That is his title. He was filling in for Senator Steve Sweeney, who was supposed to be there but then couldn't make it at last minute. Just quickly, the report from the Executive Director. the highlights where they discussed a new focus on non-college bound education opportunities for students, career readiness, that type of thing. He was indicating that there are a number of manufacturing jobs in New Jersey, but there are not enough skilled workers to fill those jobs. And so we need to do a better job of educating the students who are not going to be going on to college to be prepared to go to the workforce. He also talked about the STEAM Tank Challenge, which is a collaboration between the New Jersey School Board Association and the U.S. Army that promotes integrating STEAM curriculum into the public schools. It is the only program of its kind in the country. This year, in 2018, they had 409 schools participated. 2015 was the first year of the program, and there were 32 schools. So there's been a huge increase in participation. He talked a little bit about the School Board Association's 3-year strategic plan, which would be focusing on student health, well-being, and success. And in response to Parkland, they reviewed their 2014 security study that they had done and put forth some new recommendations. And they've also created a new task force studying mental health in schools. And that task force should conclude its work and issue a report in either late June or early July of 2019. And there are no dues increases for 2019. Lucille Davies, who again was commissioner of the Department of Education from 2005 to 2010, she's a member of the Path to Progress New Jersey, which is an economic and fiscal policy working group created by the legislature. And I'm just going to quote their mission. They charged it with a broad mission to identify ways to address soaring pensions and benefit costs, hold on property taxes, make state and local government and school districts more efficient, assess the equity and efficiency of our state and local tax structure, leverage the value of state assets, and mitigate the negative impact of the federal tax law that targeted high-cost states. So basically, they were charged with saving New Jersey. They issued a very comprehensive report with specific recommendations, and in fact, you can find it at path2progress.org. It's about 30-some-odd pages long, but it's very interesting. It's a first step, so it's not a finalized plan or anything, but it's a first step in their recommendations. The recommendations most relevant to school districts included pensions reforms, consolidation of districts, and changes to special ed education funding and placement litigation. And just as an aside, they sort of recommended that local town governments and BOEs should meet 2 times a year to discuss shared services, which I thought was kind of funny because we do that on an ongoing basis all the time. Ms. Davies focused her comments on the report's recommendations regarding special ed and consolidation of districts. The plan or the report recommends that extraordinary special education costs should not be borne by local districts, by the property taxes of the taxpayers, but by the state. On the flip side of that, she indicated the state would want to have more of a role in how that money was used, including maybe determining appropriate placements, et cetera. The report also recommended that to alleviate some of the burden of litigation about appropriate placements, cases should be heard continuously until done and not piecemeal over the course of months and months where, you meet one time here and 3 months later you meet again. Also, that administrative law judges with special ed education would hear only special ed cases, so they would focus only on that, special ed cases, and they would try to complete cases within 60 days, which would be a big difference than what's going on now. They did retain that the burden of proof would be on school districts to defend placement as being appropriate, but changes would include parents need to be upfront and specific in their language about their basis for the challenge so that districts know how to defend the placement. So currently, apparently, districts put their case on first and have to kind of guess what it is the parents are objecting to, so they're in the dark. So that seems reasonable. As to consolidation of districts, Ms. Davies stated most important reason for doing this is that it will deliver better educational outcomes for the students. Side benefit is it may actually cut costs also, but the goal would be to bring the K4s, the K5s, the K6s, and K8 districts into a K12 regional district to have integrated, consistent curriculum. And it's not about closing schools. So you'd still have your K4 elementary school, you would just be part of a larger regional district. The next speaker was Mr. Magyar, I think is how you pronounce his name. He was basically the numbers guy for the meeting. He worked on the Senate Bill S2 for the school funding, so he was pretty intimately involved in that. He noted that aside from the 4 Abbott districts, the most expensive, in other words, highest cost districts in the state are all small districts, not urban districts. So these small districts cost more per student, and they don't necessarily provide the same level of education or services because of their size. There were still approximately 30 non-operating districts. That means that they don't really have any schools, but they have administrations and boards of eds and superintendents that need to, disappear. But that's been a more difficult challenge apparently. And the biggest challenge to the consolidations would be the funding these new districts. Once you make them, now you have to figure out how to fund them equitably. They do have a few school districts that are kind of operating as guinea pigs to study how to integrate and fund, et cetera, that they're working with. He next discussed the pension crisis. In the next 3 to 4 years, there'll be a $4.1 billion additional deficit added to the current liabilities, and it will eat up 26% of the state budget. Pension medical costs alone will consume any revenue increases. And we're one of the most underfunded pensions in the country. The combined pension and retiree health benefits liabilities is $151.5 billion with a B. It's 4 times the size of the state's annual budget. So clearly something has to be done about that. He said that legislature's focus for this coming year, he believed we'd see the SFRA increased to underfunded districts would be proportional to sort of how much they've been underfunded, so that would be good. Paying a down payment on the extraordinary special education, though we couldn't give specifics on what we'd see. Change to state medical plans. In other words, they want to see a shift of coverage from platinum to gold. So still a good plan, but a cheaper plan. And no changes to Chapter 78 contribution. He actually quoted Senator Sweeney, and this is a quote, "As long as I'm Senate President, I will not allow any legislation that cuts employee contributions under Chapter 78, end quote. So there's not going to be any movement on that. There was some Q&A afterwards. Somebody brought up the fact that I thought was interesting. Charter schools are all very small, but they weren't addressed in the report. So we were told they'd be looked at going forward. Someone pointed out that the commission in the report was done without any input from the governor's office, and Mr. Magyar stated that the fiscal realities of the state were going to require cooperation from the governor. Like, it's just going to have to happen. A lot of other issues got raised. Responses were often, we'll look at it, we'll see what happens with our 68 pilot study districts, but this is just the beginning step. Few districts who were overfunded all these years and now are seeing their funding cut got up and were crying a little about that, but I couldn't feel too badly about that. So, and that was about it. And sorry it's long-winded. I thought it was really fascinating. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And again, that fuller report is on the website. Any questions? Mrs. Judge.
So first of all, what time did you get to leave on that Saturday morning? What time did it end, if you didn't vote on anything?
We left about 1:30.
Oh my gosh, really? Because usually it's done by noon?
There were a lot of people coming up speaking.
Yeah. So I've heard this gentleman speak before that works with Steve Sweeney or whatever, and he's very doom and gloom. He makes me very nervous. Every time I'm like, oh my God, we're not gonna survive this. Can you repeat what you said about how many districts there are that have a superintendent, administration, and boards, but aren't really open?
It's approximately 30. In fact, Ms. Davies had said that they had really pushed to try to get rid of those, and they got rid of a few under her tenure, but it's a much harder thing to do.
Tavistock is one.
Oh, right.
Right, Tavistock. I think they actually used Tavistock as an example of one.
So it's a non-functioning, but they're... Wow,
Yeah.
okay. That was my only major question.
Right.
Wow, okay.
And yes, he is very doom and gloom. In fact, my heart rate kind of went a little bit when he was talking. I was like, oh my gosh. But, he's got the numbers, and, they are what they are. Any other questions? Okay.
You'll have to bring your question up during public comment. Two. One's on the agenda. Right. Other questions?
Just a comment. I guess it seems like when you talk about addiction to technology and the kids having that, and then we're talking about having one-to-one, and oftentimes the kids use their phones in class for Google stuff. It seems like that's, I don't know, there's some kind of ironic thing there. How can you be addicted and yet even in a lot of the classes you're expected to use your technology? So
it's a good point. My own personal feeling is that I think it's like almost anything, you have to learn how to use it appropriately. And and I think there's a sense that maybe parents don't realize how addicting these things are, although I think parents are as addicted to their phones as their children are, but that there may be the possibility of that. So I think there's an educational component.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Scarpolino, for that detailed report. Any other correspondence? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into our board representative reports, and I guess we'll start off with Julia from East.
Good evening, esteemed members of the Board of Education. I have a brief update for you regarding student concerns at Cherry Hill East. This year, as East student representatives to the board, Craig Robinson and I are conducting 4 surveys, 1 per marking period, of the student body at East regarding current issues in the school. Tonight, I have an update for all of you on the data collected from our first marking period survey and the ways in which we hope to make improvements in our school. The survey asked about issues specific to Cherry Hill East, and tonight I will be focusing on the topics related to the bond referendum. 30% of students who completed this survey prioritized security as the most important issue at East. Infrastructure issues followed, with 28% of students seeing these issues as the most important at our school. Students also brought up specific changes they hope to see, and many brought up the need for locker room renovations, auditorium improvement, field lighting, increased security, and HVAC replacement. I'm sure you all see that many of these issues presented by the students in this survey are issues that are listed in the bond referendum, and I commend the board on their focus on addressing the issues that they know were of the greatest concern in the community. But the underlying problem now is that students are not aware of the work being done by administration to address these concerns. Data from the survey showed that approximately 80% of students who completed the survey had never attended any sort of town hall meeting or board meeting, so now one of our primary concerns is finding ways in which we can bridge the gap between the student population and the board. We decided to prioritize informing the student population on the bond referendum, and I believe that many of the student concerns can be solved if the bond is passed on the 11th. So, next Monday, students will have the opportunity to attend an open meeting during lunch to discuss the bond and the changes that could be coming to East, and to ask questions about these issues. I would like to thank the administrators for working with us to help bridge this gap between the students and administration, and I would like to encourage all adults and anyone who plans on voting on the 11th to talk to students about these issues. Teenagers are often overlooked because we are not paying the taxes, but I believe that it is important for anyone who plans on voting to be educated on the issues at hand, and the students who have been in the school for years have first-hand experience with those problems. Thank you for giving me the time to share this update with all of you. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Sonia, would you report on West for us?
Yes, I would. Good evening, everybody. Here are a couple of headlines from the past 2 weeks on what's going on in the Cherry Hill West community. On November 20th, the Cherry Hill Education Association organized and hosted their first annual homecoming breakfast, which was held at Cherry Hill East, and this event celebrated the hard work and success of the senior members of the East and West marching bands, cheer squads, and football teams. Congratulations to those students, and thank you for your contributions to the high school and township communities. Students on the East and West lacrosse teams took a trip on November 20th to visit 2nd and 3rd grade students at various elementary schools in the district as a part of their Read Lacrosse America program. The high schoolers read aloud to the elementary students and discussed with them the importance of teamwork and sportsmanship both on and off the field. This year also marks the 50th anniversary of the annual East versus West Thanksgiving game, an event that brings people from all corners of the Cherry Hill community together for a night of friendly competition to close out the season and kick off the holiday weekend. Congratulations to the West football team, who won the game in the coveted boot with a score of 22-7. In other news, the cheerleading squads and marching bands from East and West performed at a ceremony on November 15th to celebrate the Cherry Hill Public Township School District being named a 2018 National District of Character. This honor is a testament to the spirit of community that students and staff alike work tirelessly to foster throughout every scholastic year. The National Honor Society has rescheduled its dodgeball tournament to tomorrow night, Wednesday, November 28th at 6:30 p.m. Admission is $2 or a canned good donation, and all proceeds will benefit the Cherry Hill Food Pantry. The Spanish for Heritage classes, Spanish 5 and 5 AP classes, and the Life Skills class at West are collecting toys to donate to the Mi Casita Bilingual Daycare Center in Camden. This group of students is also working together with Project Lit, which is collecting children's books for the same organization. Donations will be collected through December 14th. And congratulations to West senior Alexa Caputo on receiving her Girl Scout Award for her work on a project to build tables for an outdoor learning space at Kingston Elementary School. And that is all I have for you tonight. Are there any questions? Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Sonia. All right, we'll have our first public discussion period. Your comments must be regarding items on today's action agenda. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address and the agenda item you are addressing. You'll have 3 minutes for your remarks. Please note that the green light will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. The light will turn red when your 3 minutes are up.
About the meeting you went to? All right, it's about the meeting that she went to.
You should bring that up in the second period.
Okay, so I can't bring it up now?
No, it has to be from something on the agenda.
Okay, I thought it was kind of the agenda because it was discussed today, and that's the reason why I said it.
You can bring it up during the second period.
I got something else to bring up on that. Only have 3 minutes.
Anyone else? Okay, then I will once again turn the floor over to Dr. Malash.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. So, happy end of November. I hope that everybody had a restful and enjoyable Thanksgiving holiday with family and with friends. I was able to take some time just to spend together, take a deep breath, and to be as we get into the very busy December season. I'm thankful to the young ladies for their presentations. I had an opportunity to attend the homecoming breakfast and the homecoming game, and it just was incredible to see 400 plus kids in the cafeteria over at High School East. Senior leaders from each one of the groups, including Julia, got up and spoke and introduced the seniors. It was a very nice celebration. You know, the work that went into it. I had an opportunity to be able to share a couple of words and just with the kids about how important it is, and to take the opportunity, one, to celebrate as a community about all the hard work that went in, and to recognize that all the days and the hours and the months and the years of preparation as individuals and in groups that went into that event. Now, it was a wonderful evening for the homecoming game last Wednesday evening. There was an incredible crowd, honestly one of the biggest crowds at the beginning of the game that I remember seeing in a number of years. So a great crowd, some great competition. The boys on the field did a really nice job, worked very hard. It's always exciting to see alum and community folks that come back out to kind of always touch base there at the beginning of the game. The crowd kind of, fades a little bit as the evening goes on, but it's always great to see so many people that are out there. As we are almost to December 1st, we are going to be intimately in theater and music concert season. So every time I get the opportunity to speak in the community, I encourage people at the middle schools and at the high schools to take a look and find out when the concerts and the shows are occurring and to get out to see them. The level of performance, the ability and the talent that is shared by our children, the work that's done by our staff is absolutely incredible. And the first one, I think, is next Monday night. Some of the board members have committee meeting, but it's the All Cherry Hill Chorus concert is next Monday night over at High School West. We are treated every Monday. They do the rehearsal here at the administration building, and selfishly, it's wonderful, right? We bring kids from all 12 elementary schools. Mr. Kane and Miss Britton do an incredible job with the children, to bring kids from all across the district together, and they put that concert on. But please, go on the website. Mrs. Wilson continues to update with the folks in technology about when the concerts are, but get out and see the concerts and the shows as well. Winter sports are in full swing. There'll be competitions will begin relatively soon. I always like to mark on my calendar when the East-West competitions are taking place. So please, same thing, we'll share that out with the board, but make sure you see when those games are. Again, always great competition, boys and girls basketball, in wrestling, in swimming, and in bowling as they come through. And for those of you that are fans of swimming, the East-West meet, you always need to make sure you get down early. There's only a limited number of seating inside in the natatorium down to go down. So please make sure you mark those as well. I will have the date for you in December. It's not until January. The swim meet is in January to go through. This is also the first year that we will have NJSIAA, which is the governing body for interscholastic sports in the state of New Jersey, has officially sanctioned girls wrestling. So we have a set of girls at both high schools. We have had girls on and off the teams. They've become co-ed teams in the past, but there are a set of girls at both high schools who are out and who are interested to participate. So I'm excited. I've talked to the wrestling coaches at both of the high schools who are very excited about the young ladies being out to compete. Hopefully we'll be able to maintain the girls that are in the program as we move forward as well. We spent a lot of time over the last few months, and we'll continue over the next couple of weeks, talking about the referendum, the bond referendum, about almost a little less than $211 million. 2 weeks from today, the polls are open from 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I encourage people to be informed. The best place to find information about the referendum is on our website. I've had great opportunity over the last couple of weeks to speak at a number of events, community events, small group meetings. Mrs. Sugars and Mrs. Wilson and Mrs. Scarpolino and Mr. Goodwin. We were all at town council last night. We did a presentation, to town council and to the mayor, where we shared information. We want people to be talking about, specifically about the referendum. Again, if you go to our website, the folks in technology, Mrs. Wilson, have put together an incredible amount of information that continues to be updated, including the frequently asked questions about what's included in the bond, what's not included in the bond, what is it that we are doing moving forward. This Thursday is my next online lunch with the superintendent, and we will focus on the bond and talking about the bond. Mrs. Wilson will, or Mrs. Sugars will join me. Mrs. Wilson always joins me for the online lunch. Mrs. Sugars will join me, but I have a special guest before Mrs. Sugars and I talk about the bond. We're going to formally introduce Dr. Smith to the community. So Dr. Smith will, come on and talk a little about just about his background, his initial experience in Cherry Hill, and then we'll get into some very specific details. There are a number of events that we still have coming up to talk about the bond. There are community events that are scheduled this coming Sunday on December the 2nd. It'll be at High School East from 1 to 2:30 in the Media Center as a community event. I'm really excited to be over at High School West. Did I say High School East? High School West on Sunday, December 2nd. I apologize. So Julie's looking, she's like, it's not at East. I'm excited to we'll be at High School West on December 2nd. I'm excited to be with the kids at High School East to talk on December 3rd and to answer questions with them. And then on Saturday, December the 8th, from 9:30 to 11 in the Media Center at Rosa, we're going to be having a discussion. Actually, beginning at 8:45, we're having bonding over breakfast. CHEA, the Teachers the Association, is sponsoring a breakfast. So we'll be at the Media Center at Rosa. And then Mrs. Wilson's going to be posting a list. I think I will be, over between Saturday and Sunday, we'll be at Short Hills Deli, be at the JCC, be at Cherry Hill Racquet Club, at Ponzio's, and at the library. Between Saturday and Sunday for about 90-minute blocks, just in case there are folks in the community that want to come out and ask questions or talk about it. So board members, that'll be in your memo this Friday, just a list as to when those are going to be. Certainly welcome to join and to talk about what's going on. Had a great discussion with Zone PTA this morning, which is the PTA presidents and other folks from throughout the district about the bond. So again, we encourage people to become informed, to know what it is that's included. A couple of highlights just about information. The information that's included in the bond, there's 3 questions. If approved, that is not all the work that will take place in the district over the course of the next 20 years. One of the things the bond allows us to do is to do those large-scale projects where we're financing them. It opens up the operational capital in our yearly budget. Typically, we spend $3 to $5 million a year in capital improvements. We will continue to do that. Folks have asked about, well, what about if there's things that we are interested in that are not included in the bond? We encourage people to tell us, right? Because again, we will continue as we build our yearly budget, including projects that we will do in our schools year in and year out that we need to do. So again, if people do have questions, I encourage them to contact us. Contact me directly, contact Mrs. Wilson, go through the quick question on the website, and definitely come out to one of the community conversations. It's been enjoyable for me, to go out and to speak to folks. We were at Temple Beth Shalom a couple of Sundays ago, and actually had a chance to meet some people that I did not know, from the community, which is always exciting for me, to be able to talk to different folks about what's going on. So, that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Mosh. Good stuff. All right, we'll move into our action agenda. Mrs. Seidel, would you move C&I, please?
I sure will. Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. The superintendent recommends and I move the following. Number 1, approval of attendance at conferences and workshops for the 2018-2019 school year. Number 2, approval of out-of-district student placements for the 2018-2019 school year. And there is an addition, the gold sheet in front of you, and the information that we received earlier today. Item number 3, resolution approving Sustainable New Jersey grant application. Do I have a second? Mrs. Scarpolino. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars. Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Sorry. Mrs. Judge?
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes to all.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all. Mr. Tomlinson, would you move B and F, please?
Sure will. The superintendent recommends and I move the following. Number 1, financial reports. Number 2, resolutions. Number 3, resolution approving Cherry Hill McKinney-Vento DCP-NP students out-of-district placements for the 2017-2018 and 2018-2019 school years. Number 4, resolution for the award of bids. Number 5, resolution for the award of transportation. Number 6, acceptance of donations. And for item number 4, we have the details on our blue sheet, which include the award of bids for the Kilmer and Carusi HVAC repair work being completed. Do I have a second? Mrs. Seidel, any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars?
Mr. Tomlinson?
Abstaining from Bancroft Neurohealth, yes to the remainder.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Judge?
I need to abstain on the bill list, the Cooper Health System. Yes to the remainder.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Abstaining with respect to CDW on the bill list. Yes to the remainder.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Schultz?
I need to abstain from Bayada Home Health on the bill list. Yes to the rest.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all. Mrs. Judge, would you move HR, please?
Yes, I certainly will. The superintendent recommends and I move the following. Number 1, termination of employment certificated. Number 2, termination of employment non-certificated. Number 3, appointment certificated. Number 4, appointments non-certificated. Number 5, leaves of absence certificated. Number 6, leaves of absence non-certificated. Number 7, assignment salary change non-certificated. Number 8, other compensation certificated. Number 9, approval of revised job description. And we have a pink sheet adding to number 1, termination of employment certificated, and number 3, appointment certificated. Do I have a second? Mrs. Scarpolino. Any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes to all.
Dr. Wong?
Abstaining from item 3 involving role in the Rutgers University, and yes to the remainder.
Dr. Dickinson.
Yes to all. Mrs. Scarpolino, would you move P&L, please?
Certainly, Dr. Dickinson. Actually, I am not going to be moving item, well, it's written as item 3, but it's really item 1, having to do with the approval of harassment, imitation, and bullying investigation decisions that is being pulled from the agenda tonight. There's new processes that we're going to be using where we discuss the incident at this meeting, and then we will vote on it in the next meeting, and that will continue going forward. So when we see the incidents for the first time, we will discuss them, and then the next meeting is when we will vote on them. So back to you, Dr. Dickinson.
Thank you. And do not believe we have any items for strategic planning. Does anybody have any questions or comments for strategic planning for Mrs. Matlack? No? Sorry, I tried.
That's it. I appreciate that.
All right. So we'll move into our second public discussion period. You may now comment on any issue. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes for your remarks.
Hello, my name is Jeff Potowitz. I live in 110 Kilburn Drive in Cherry Hill. It's about the bond. I asked the superintendent a question and I didn't get an answer, so let me kind of ask it again. First, special action agenda, October 2nd, 2018, and it's important for everyone to read it. This is part of the resolution. The bond hereby accepts the board accepts the determination of preliminary eligible cost as set forth in the letters of the New Jersey Department of Education, elects to receive the state share in the form of debt service aid, determines to construct the projects, agrees to locally finance any excess costs, and delegates the supervision of the project to the Assistant Superintendent for Business, Business Administrator, Board Secretary. Originally, and it's on the website, Board of Education of the Township of Cherry Hill, County of Camden, New Jersey, School Bond Referendum Summary of Tax Impact Analysis. Referendum amount was, this is approximate 210 million, length 20 years, estimated interest 3.875, debt service aid was 30.71, average tax income, we're going to skip. Then it says overall cost before state aid, $306,408,310.10. Cost overall with state aid, $212,316,583. So that's again on the website. But what's also on the website, and adds to some confusion, is the, at least for me, or maybe there's no confusion, Cherry Hill Public Schools bond referendum at a glance. And on the bottom it says total estimated state share, $76,257,529. Total estimated local share, $134,515,078. That equals the 210, but does not equal the 306. And in fact, when you look at these numbers, if these are the numbers that are true, the state is only paying 76 million of really 306, and we're going to be paying a lot more because the difference is 20 million. So what numbers are correct and what's going on? Because this doesn't help. And again, if these numbers hold, we're going to be paying more. The 306 will always be the 306 if these numbers are correct. If they're not, that's another story.
Dr. Potowitz, if you see Mrs. Wilson and give her your email address so I can make sure we have the right address, I'll send a response to you that'll outline it, and we'll put it up as one of the FAQs as well to go through. So see Mrs. Wilson, you know who Mrs. Wilson is, and make sure we have your correct email address.
Thank you. Other comments?
Eileen Doran, 47 Bryn Mawr Avenue, Cherry Hill. I really just an easy, quick question, Ms. Scarpolino. I missed the site you gave for that we could find more information. Would you be willing? I know you don't usually answer, but if you could give that again or email it to me later, that's fine. Whatever you prefer.
I'll state it again.
Sure.
This is for the Path to Progress?
Yes, Path
okay.
to Progress. Yes.
It's pathtoprogress.org.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Actually, it's Path to Progress NJ. I looked it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Path to Progress NJ.
Yeah, sorry.
So,
yeah.
See, I didn't know what I was talking about anyway.
No, I looked it up when you said it.
And you thought no one was paying attention to it.
Really, it was a quiz. Thank you for paying attention.
Ann Einhorn, 1017 Edgemore Road. So let's go back to the meetings that you attended. Right now, isn't Oakland and Collingswood a shared district now where those children go to the high school? There is some movement in South Jersey that I think relates to the report that you gave this evening. So I'm a little confused. You said there were 23 school districts that they're looking at or piloting, or did I totally mishear that? I'm sorry. I really shouldn't direct it to a board member. But I'm a little, I actually spoke to a kid today in my practice, and I'm going to Collingswood now but I live in Oak Lynn. So I thought we were starting that process, even though I know there is a great deal of resistance from some communities.
Yeah. My understanding from the meeting was that they are piloting it. He actually called them guinea pigs. Some districts, certain districts, and then there are actually some districts who are already starting to do it themselves regionally because they know it's beneficial, like outside of the part, looking at regionalizing. I don't think he gave, or at least I did not take down information on which districts there were, but there were somewhere between 6 and 8, I think he said. So
okay,
it could very well be that Collingswood and Oakland are one of them, but I don't know that information.
Okay, so it's a start. And this has been a concern of mine for a long time, that there are 600 school districts, but you have complete school boards and budgets to vote on and this and that, but it's not working well anymore. So hopefully someday in South Jersey we can have a bigger discussion about that. Thank you.
Just as a follow-up, so Oakland and Collingswood, they employ the same superintendent, business administrators, some of the administrators. There's still 2 separate boards of education, I believe, that exist with where it is. So there's a shared service that's provided. And other places in Camden County has occurred. Used to have Berlin Borough and Gibbsboro, that did a shared in the past. They both still maintained their own boards of education in the past.
Yoni Yaris, 422 Cherry Hill Boulevard. In terms of Ms. Scarpolino's report, I feel like we're going through funny discussions. In the 90s, we got rid of all the Voc Ed classes, all the science labs, and F-Wing at East that used to be the auto shop, and 2 other things were turned into science labs. So I'm curious, for CNI long range, are they going to consider going back in time, ironically, which is not something I expected during my lifetime, that all of a sudden blue-collar work is becoming really important again, which is great, especially valuing those students who might not thrive in college, which is okay and great. That let's set them up for success together. So I'd be curious where CNI goes next year about really discussing that and having a home for all students in Cherry Hill. Speaking of students in Cherry Hill, for those of us, it looks like we'll be done before 9 o'clock, should turn into Blackish tonight, for a good reason. One of our alum from 94, Laura Guten-Patterson, is both the co-exec on that and also wrote tonight's episode. So once again, we've got alum in the district doing really awesome things, especially on a show that has created fascinating social commentary. And that's about it.
Anyone else? No? Okay, so we'll close public comment. Anybody have anything else to add? You were a hit tonight. Who knew?
And I thought I was going to bore you all.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Judge and Mrs. Matlack. Good night, everybody.